Hi, I'm Alan Pope, developer advocate for Influx Data on Telegraf.
And I'm Josh Powers, senior engineer on the Telegraf team at InfluxDB.
So Telegraf has a whole bunch of advanced configuration options. Where do we start?
So I want to talk today about timing, batches and buffer sizes, and filtering.
Let's start with timing.
Right, so two of the most important configuration options are interval and flush interval. The interval is used by Telegraf to know when to go reach out to inputs and collect metrics. The flush interval is used on the outputs to send those metrics that it's collected. By default, it's set to 10 seconds. So in this case, we'd run it 12 seconds after the minute and then 22 seconds after the minute. However, if a user wanted to collect data more often or send data more often, if they cut it in half, they would be sending or collecting data twice as fast at 7, 12, 17, and 22 seconds.
What if I wanted the data to come precisely on the minute?
Yeah, so setting the round interval configuration option to true will do that. So users can then be right at the top of the minute or the bottom of the minute or at even round intervals.
And what if you explicitly don't want it to be at the top of the minute?
Yeah, so for users who have maybe a heavy network load or they don't want to hit something all at the same time, they can use the jitter and the flush jitter options on the inputs and of course the outputs respectively. Setting it to 1 second would add a 1 second plus or minus on every interval and flush interval. Setting it to 5 seconds would do the same, but plus or minus 5 seconds.
And can we be more precise than the 1 second interval?
Yeah, so by default, we use the 1 second interval option. However, if users want to get even more precise all the way down to the nanosecond, they can use the precision configuration setting.
Cool. So you mentioned buffers. How do those work?
Yeah, so in Telegraf, we have a batch and a buffer size. When Telegraf collects metrics from inputs, they're stored in a buffer. And this buffer exists only in memory. It's not written out to disk. So if users are on a small memory system, they may want to reduce this buffer size, or if they're on a very large system where they're collecting lots of different metrics, they may need to increase the size so you don't lose metrics. Batches are used to send metrics to outputs. If you're on a very slow network connection, you don't want to be spending a lot of stuff over the network, you may want to reduce your batch size.
Let's look at filtering. What are selectors?
So with metric filtering, selectors allow you to choose which metrics to continue on and send to outputs or processors or aggregators. You can choose these based off of a name or a tag. In this first example, if we say name pass, we're only going to be choosing metrics that are called HTTP. If we say name drop, we're going to be dropping metrics called HTTP, and everything else would continue on. These values take an array of strings, and they can use regular expressions to allow wildcards to choose dynamic values.
Awesome. What about modifiers?
So modifiers, instead of selecting metrics, they actually modify the metrics themselves. So in this case, you can choose based off of tags and fields. In this first row, if you say tag include, we're only going to include the tag building. But if we say tag exclude, we're going to include everything except for the tag building. And the same thing for fields.
Awesome. Where can people find out more information?
Users can go to the Telegraf documentation to learn more. We can't wait to see what you build.